At family dinner, Dad asked if the money helped. I said, "What money?" Then I looked at Mom. "Stick with me while I share my story. And if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about." The table went quiet after I said those 2 words. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Dad looked confused, like I'd just spoken another language. "The money I sent you last spring," he said slowly. 15,000 for your student loans." My heart dropped. "Dad, you never sent me any money." He blinked. "Of course I did. I sent it to your account. The one your mom gave me." I turned to Mom. She was frozen, eyes locked on her plate, her hand shaking slightly as she set down her glass. The clink of the glass against the table was the only sound in the room. My dad's voice grew harder. "Lydia, what's going on?" She forced a laugh that sounded like glass cracking. "David, you must be remembering wrong. Maybe it went to the wrong place." But my dad wasn't buying it. I could see his face changing, the lines deepening, his jaw tightening. He turned to me. "You didn't get any of it?" "No," I whispered. Mom finally looked up, her face pale, eyes wide. "Can we please not do this now?" she said, her voice sharp but trembling. Dad leaned back in his chair, staring at her like she was a stranger. "So where did the money go?" No one spoke. The smell of the roast chicken suddenly made me sick. I wanted to get up to leave, but I couldn't move. I kept thinking about all the nights I cried over bills, the times I skipped meals to make rent, the messages from Mom saying, "We're tight right now, honey. Don't ask your dad for anything." My dad stood up slowly. "I sent it to the account you gave me, Lydia. Your email confirmed it." Mom's lips trembled. I must have mixed things up. I was just trying to help manage things." He laughed, a cold, disbelieving laugh. "Manage? You told me she needed help. I sent it to you because you said she didn't want me to know she was struggling." My mom's eyes darted toward me. "Rin, please." But I couldn't even look at her. My chest felt tight. I thought about every text, every conversation where she told me she was trying her best. All lies. Dad pushed his chair back. "I think I've heard enough." He walked out without another word. Mom sat there, frozen. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house. I sat in silence, staring at the table, my mind spinning. My mom whispered, "You don't understand." But I did. I understood perfectly. Everything had just changed. I used to wake up before sunrise, pulling my hair into a messy bun and rushing to the small diner on Maple Street. The air always smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. I'd slip on my apron, paste on a tired smile, and start another double shift. Between balancing trays and refilling coffee cups, I'd steal glances at the clock, counting down the hours until I could study again. Nursing school was tough, but quitting wasn't an option. Rent was due every first of the month, and every dollar mattered. Mom always told me not to worry about asking Dad for help. "We're barely scraping by, sweetheart," she'd say, rubbing my shoulder like she carried the weight of the whole family. "Your dad's business isn't what it used to be." I believed her. Every word. I thought she was protecting him, protecting us. When I'd come home late, she'd already be sitting at the kitchen table with bills spread out in neat piles. Sometimes she'd sigh, tapping her pen, muttering about insurance or the electric bill. I'd offer to pick up extra shifts, and she'd smile weakly, saying, "You already do enough, honey. Just focus on school." I thought she was being selfless. Now I wonder if she was just making sure I stayed too busy to ask questions. The days blurred together. Diner, class, study, sleep. I barely had time to breathe. The only messages I ever got from Mom were small updates. "We'll make it work. Don't stress. We're okay for now." I didn't realize how carefully those words were chosen. Sometimes, when I'd sit in my car after a late shift, I'd think about how different things could have been if Dad and I talked more. But Mom always said he was too tired, too stressed, too busy to deal with money talk. She said she handled everything so he wouldn't have to. I was grateful. I thought we were lucky to have someone so organized, so responsible. On weekends, I'd study at the diner after closing, my textbooks open beside a cold cup of coffee. My manager, Gloria, would joke that I was the hardest-working 22-year-old she'd ever met. I'd just smile, thinking of how proud Mom would be if I finally graduated. I didn't notice how distant Mom had become. Her phone was always buzzing, her eyes always darting away when I walked into the room. I thought it was stress. I told myself she just needed space. Sometimes she'd hug me tighter than usual, whispering, "You'll thank me one day." Back then, it sounded like love. I never guessed she was hiding something from both of us. I never questioned where the money went, or why things never got easier. I trusted her completely. And that trust, blind, loyal, foolish, was the calm before everything shattered. After the dishes were cleared, Dad asked if we could talk alone. His voice was quiet but sharp, the kind that made my chest tighten. We stepped out to the porch, where the air was cool and still. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking a little. "Rin," he said, "I need to show you something." The glow from the screen lit up his face. He scrolled through messages and opened a thread of receipts, each one showing a transfer of money. I saw the numbers first. 15,000. Then the dates. One every month. My name in the notes section. He looked at me, eyes full of confusion. That's the account your mom said was yours. The one you opened before school. You never got any of this. My stomach twisted. No, Dad. I never saw a dime. He zoomed in on the account name. I recognized part of it. Our family's old email address. But the rest wasn't mine. My pulse pounded as the truth began to form, slow and heavy. That account wasn't mine. It was hers. Dad rubbed his forehead, breathing hard. She told me you were drowning in bills, that you were too proud to ask me for help. So I sent what I could. His voice broke. I thought I was helping you. The porch light flickered above us. I stared at the screen, at the confirmation numbers lined up like little wounds, each one a lie. You're sure this went to her? I asked. He nodded. Every transfer was set up through her. She said you didn't want me to know. The world tilted for a second. I remembered Mom at the kitchen table, pretending to stress over bills, telling me not to worry. I remembered how she always said she'd take care of the detail. Dad sank down onto the steps, his voice hollow. I kept thinking you must be okay. You never asked for more. I figured maybe it was enough. I didn't know what to say. I thought about all the nights I'd scraped change from tip jars just to keep the lights on. All the times Mom told me not to call him about money. Rin, he said quietly, if she lied about this, what else has she lied about? The question hung between us. The night felt colder. I could still hear laughter from inside, her laughter, floating through the open door like nothing had happened. Dad looked at me again, eyes tired. I need to know the truth. I nodded, though my throat was too tight to speak. My mind was spinning, piecing together things that suddenly made sense. Her secretive phone calls, the nervous way she'd flinch when Dad mentioned the bank. The porch creaked under our feet as we stood there in silence. The truth had found its way out, and it was uglier than either of us wanted to believe. I couldn't sleep that night. The sound of Dad's footsteps pacing downstairs kept mixing with the echo of Mom's laugh from earlier. I needed to know how deep this went. When the house finally went quiet, I opened my laptop and started digging. The first thing I checked were old messages. Mom had always been the one to handle anything money-related, so I searched through every text that mentioned bills or transfers. Some were normal, reminders about tuition, small payments, but others felt off. She'd used a different email, one I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened as I copied it into a search bar and found bank alerts tied to that address. The next morning, while she was out running errands, I drove to my parents' house. The place felt different now. Every photo on the wall, every framed smile looked like a mask. I went through the mail stacked on the counter. Hidden between grocery flyers was a thick envelope from a credit company addressed to me. My hands shook as I tore it open. It was a notice for a line of credit I never applied for, opened 6 months ago, under my name, but with her handwriting in the signature box. I sat there for a long time, staring at it. She hadn't just taken Dad's money. She'd used my identity too. When she came home, the door creaked and her heels clicked softly against the tile. She looked surprised to see me. Rin, what are you doing here? I held up the envelope. You want to explain this? Her face stayed calm, almost practiced. You wouldn't understand, she said quietly, setting her purse down. Try me. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I did what I had to do. Things have been hard, and I was trying to keep us afloat. I felt anger rising, hot and sharp. By stealing from me? From Dad. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Keep your voice down. This is a family matter, Rin. Your father doesn't need to know every detail. He's under enough stress. Family matter. The words felt like a slap. You lied to both of us, I said, my voice trembling. You took everything we trusted you with. Her expression hardened. I was protecting you. One day you'll see that. I didn't answer. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I couldn't stop replaying her face in my mind, how calm she looked, how sure she was that she could twist this into something noble. I walked past her room to grab my bag, but stopped when I heard her voice. She was on the phone, whispering, Tom, I'm doing what I can. He's starting to ask questions. Once I move the rest, we can get out soon. My heart dropped. Tom, not my dad. I stepped back quietly, each word cutting deeper. She wasn't saving the family. She was escaping it. The name kept echoing in my head. Tom. I couldn't stop thinking about that whispered call. I needed to be sure, so I started looking for anything that could connect her to him. Her purse was sitting by the counter one morning, half open. Inside, tucked between receipts and lip balm, was a photo strip, 2 people laughing in a booth. Her and a man I'd never seen before. He had his arm around her like it had been there a long time. That afternoon, I drove past her office. Through the glass windows, I saw him. Tall, tan, the same face from the photo. They stood too close, laughing at something no one else could hear. When he touched her shoulder, she didn't pull away. My chest tightened so hard it hurt to breathe. All at once, everything made sense. The extra hours she claimed to work, the late-night calls, the new clothes she said were on clearance. Every lie lined up perfectly. She wasn't struggling. She was preparing to leave. I sat in my car for nearly an hour before driving home. Anger and disbelief kept colliding inside me. I thought of Dad, how he trusted her with every dollar, every decision. And me, working myself raw, believing she was keeping us together. She wasn't saving anything. She was draining us both. When she came home, I was waiting. She froze when she saw the photo on the table. "Where did you get that? Who is he?" I asked. My voice came out cold. Her face shifted, shock, then fear, then defiance. "Don't start with me, Rin. You don't understand what adults go through. I understand stealing. I understand lying." Her tone changed, low and sharp. "You think your father's perfect? You think he'd survive knowing this? Families who snitch on each other don't survive, Rin." The words hit me like a slap. "You're warning me?" "I'm protecting you," she said softly, almost pleading now. "This doesn't concern you. It's between me and him. You'll ruin everything if you tell." I stared at her, waiting for guilt to show, but there was none. Just calculation in her eyes. I realized she'd already chosen her side. She turned away, pretending to tidy the counter, as if the conversation never happened. I stood there, watching her hum under her breath, casual and calm, like she hadn't just confessed everything without saying a word. I went to my room, locked the door, and sank onto the bed. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore, from anger. I thought about telling Dad right then, about showing him everything, but something in me said no, not yet. She'd built her web carefully, and if I rushed, she'd spin another lie. So I waited. I started keeping notes, screenshots, copies of anything that could prove what she'd done. If she wanted a secret, I'd make sure it ended on my terms. I started gathering everything piece by piece, pretending like nothing had changed. When Mom was out, I'd slip into her office and take pictures of every document I could find, bank forms, email printouts, anything that looked connected. Her computer stayed logged in most nights, so I'd wait until she went to bed and copy her messages onto a flash drive. Every file felt like another brick in the wall she'd built, and I was quietly pulling it apart. She acted the same through it all, cheerful, attentive, the picture of a loving wife. Every morning she packed Dad's lunch, humming as if the world hadn't shifted beneath us. At dinner, she laughed at his stories, touching his arm like she'd never hurt him. Watching her made my skin crawl. I smiled when she looked at me, but inside I was counting the days. I needed more proof, something that tied the stolen money directly to her. So, I came up with a plan. One evening, I called Dad and told him I wanted to make a surprise anniversary album for Mom. Old letters, receipts from their early years, anything sentimental. He loved the idea, eager to help. Over the next week, he sent me envelopes full of old papers, handwritten notes, even some old bank statements he'd kept in a shoebox. He didn't realize those were exactly what I needed. I spread everything out across my desk, matching dates and transactions. The pattern jumped out immediately, transfers that lined up perfectly with her fake, overtime shifts and withdrawals that matched her supposed grocery expenses. I marked every one. It was like connecting dots on a map of betrayal. Every night, she sat on the couch with her phone, scrolling and smiling. Sometimes she'd look up and ask me about school, her tone sweet and soft, the same one she used when she wanted something. I'd answer politely, pretending not to notice the way she locked her screen every time I walked closer. I started a small folder on my laptop labeled Memories, a name innocent enough that she'd never check. Inside, I saved everything that could expose her. Screenshots of the transfers, messages between her and Tom, the forged credit application. Every time I opened it, my hands trembled, but I kept going. I learned to hide the anger behind calm. I'd help her set the table, wash dishes, even laugh at her jokes when Dad was around. Each fake smile from her reminded me why I couldn't stop. She thought she'd fooled everyone, that her act was unbreakable. But I saw through every gesture, every lie. And while she played perfect wife, I was building the story that would tear it all apart. I didn't know exactly when I'd use it, but I knew one thing for sure. The moment she least expected it, I'd show her what truth looked like. I chose the restaurant carefully, the same one where we used to celebrate birthdays, the place that felt safe and warm before everything soured. When I told them it was for Dad's promotion, Mom lit up like she always did when she had an audience. She spent hours getting ready, wearing her pearl necklace and a soft cream dress that made her look polished, almost innocent. Dad seemed happy, unaware that the night wasn't about his success, but about everything he didn't know. The three of us sat near the window, the glow from the streetlights casting long shadows across the table. Mom chatted easily, asking the waiter about the specials, laughing at small things. I watched her fingers trace the stem of her wine glass, the same hand that had signed my name on a loan form. Dad looked proud, smiling at her as if nothing in their world had changed. When the food came, I barely touched mine. My heart thudded so loudly I thought someone might hear it. Mom kept the conversation flowing. Stories about her office, a compliment about the decor, a joke about Dad's new boss. It was all rehearsed perfection. I waited. When the waiter cleared the plates and set down dessert menus, I reached into my bag. My fingers brushed against the small envelope wrapped in brown paper. My pulse slowed. It was time. "I made you something," I said, sliding it toward Dad. He smiled, surprised. "For me?" Mom looked curious, eyes soft with practiced affection. "What's this, sweetheart?" "Just something I thought you'd want to see," I said. He opened it carefully like it might be fragile. The papers inside were neatly stacked, copies of transfers, emails, texts, and account records. For a moment, he didn't understand what he was looking at. Then his brow furrowed and his smile faded. He flipped through the pages slowly, the air around us tightening with every turn. Mom's voice cracked the silence. "David, what is that?" He didn't answer. He kept reading, his hands trembling slightly. The color drained from her face as she leaned forward, trying to see. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. I didn't speak. Her eyes darted to mine, wide and pleading now. "Rin, what did you do?" Dad's chair scraped against the floor as he stood, still holding the papers. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You told me these were for her tuition," he said, voice low. "Every single one." Mom reached across the table, her smile breaking apart. "Please, let's not do this here." The restaurant had gone quiet. I could feel the eyes of strangers on us, but I didn't care. Dad looked down at the proof in his hands, then back at her. "How long?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. The silence that followed felt final, like the sound of something precious cracking beyond repair. Dad's voice broke through the heavy silence. "Tell me why," he said, each word sharp enough to cut through the noise around us. "Why would you do this, Lydia?" Mom's hands trembled as she reached for him. "David, please, it's not what you think." He stepped back, clutching the papers like they might burn him. "Then explain it." Her eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out. "It was for us," she said finally, her tone shaking but practiced. "I was trying to help the family. You were always so stressed. Rin was struggling, and I—" "Stop," I said quietly. She froze. I pulled my phone from my bag and scrolled to the folder I'd been saving for weeks. The screen glowed between us. "You weren't helping anyone," I said, my voice steady now. "You were planning to leave." Her lips parted, but no words came. I turned the phone toward them both and began reading, line by line. "Once I get the rest, we'll have enough to start over. He doesn't suspect a thing. Keep quiet, Tom. I'll handle them." Each message landed like a stone dropping into water, rippling through the air until even the nearby tables went silent. I didn't look up. I just kept reading until I reached the last one, the one that ended with, "Can't wait to be free." Mom covered her face, her voice cracking through her fingers. "Rin, please stop." Dad's expression hardened. "Free from what?" She tried to reach for him again, tears streaking her cheeks. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far." He shook his head slowly. "You lied to me. You lied to her." "For what, him?" She sobbed, trying to speak, but the words tangled. The people around us pretended not to stare, though their eyes lingered, drawn to the quiet disaster unfolding in front of them. I set the phone down on the table. The noise of the restaurant faded until all I could hear was her breathing, uneven and desperate. "You ruined everything," she whispered, her voice small, broken. I met her gaze, but there was nothing left to say. Dad pushed his chair back, so hard it scraped against the floor. He left the papers where they were and walked out without looking back. The door swung shut behind him, and the sound seemed to echo through every corner of the room. Mom stayed frozen, staring at the empty space he'd left behind. Her hand reached toward the seat, as if she could still pull him back. When she turned to me, her eyes were hollow. "You didn't have to do this," she said, barely a whisper. But I didn't answer. I just sat there, still, calm for the first time in months. The chaos she'd created was finally out in the open, and for once, the silence felt like peace. The days after that dinner felt unreal. The house that once smelled like morning coffee and fresh laundry turned cold and hollow. Dad barely spoke, moving through the rooms like a ghost. Papers piled on the kitchen counter, letters from lawyers, bank statements, and a thick envelope marked divorce petition. He signed everything without hesitation. Mom didn't fight it. She packed her things in silence, one box at a time. Neighbors stopped waving when she drove by. The whispers started first at church, then at the grocery store, then everywhere. Everyone knew about Tom, the man who vanished the moment her secret came out. No goodbyes, no explanations, just gone. The bank called within a week. The credit account under my name had triggered an investigation. I had to go in and explain what happened, show proof that it wasn't me. Sitting there across from the investigator, I felt small but steady. I told them about the fake signature, the transfers, the forged form. They asked for my statement, and I gave it. My voice didn't shake once. Mom's name came up more times than I could count. I heard later that she left town quietly, selling her car and taking a bus out of state. No forwarding address. Just disappearance. It was strange. After everything she'd done, part of me expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, it was just empty. Like the space she left behind was too large to fill. Dad and I moved into a small apartment above a bakery on the edge of town. The walls were thin, and the air smelled like cinnamon every morning. We didn't have much, 2 rooms, mismatched furniture, but it was peaceful. We talked more than we ever had before. About small things at first, work, dinner, old memories, and then slowly about her. Some nights, he'd sit on the balcony with a beer in hand, staring at the lights from the street below. I should have seen it, he'd say. I never knew how to respond. I'd just sit beside him, listening to the crickets, letting the silence say what words couldn't. School kept me busy. Between classes and shifts at the diner, there wasn't much time to dwell on the past. But sometimes when I caught my reflection in a window, I saw how much older I looked. Not in years, just in the way I carried myself. Dad started smiling again, little by little. The first time I heard him laugh, it startled me. It sounded like healing. We built something new out of what was left. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And though the memory of her lingered in quiet corners, her handwriting on an old recipe card, her perfume in a forgotten drawer, it no longer had power over us. The damage she caused couldn't be undone, but we were still standing. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Months passed before he asked me to dinner again. His text was short, same place, 7 o'clock. I stared at it for a while, unsure how I'd feel sitting at that table again. But when I walked into the restaurant and saw him waiting, something inside me settled. The air smelled of coffee and warm bread, just like it used to. Only now the weight between us was lighter. He stood when I approached, smiling in that quiet, tired way that said more than words could. We didn't talk much at first. The clatter of plates and the low hum of conversation filled the silence. It wasn't uncomfortable, just peaceful. Like both of us knew there was nothing left to explain. The waiter poured water, took our order, and disappeared again. Dad leaned back in his chair, looking around the room. Feels smaller than I remember, he said. I nodded, glancing toward the table in the corner, the one where everything had fallen apart. It was empty now, but in my mind, I could still see the 3 of us there, frozen in that awful moment. Dinner came simple and warm. We talked about school, about the apartment, about the bakery downstairs. He asked if I was still thinking of moving after graduation. I told him maybe, though the thought of leaving didn't carry the same urgency it once did. After the plates were cleared, he grew quiet again. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded napkin, and unfolded it slowly. Inside was a small photograph, me at my pinning ceremony, smiling beside him. The edges were creased from being carried too long. He set it on the table between us. You know, he said, his voice low, the money really did help. I looked at him, confused for a moment. He smiled faintly. Not the kind I sent. The kind you gave me. The words caught me off guard. My throat tightened, and I blinked hard to keep the tears from spilling. For a long time, I didn't say anything. I just stared at the photo, then at him, realizing how far we'd come from that night. He reached across the table, resting his hand over mine. We're okay now, he said quietly. I nodded, unable to speak. The restaurant lights reflected off the window beside us, and for the first time, our reflections didn't look broken, just real. We finished dinner slowly, neither of us in a hurry to leave. When we finally stood, he held the door open, and the cool evening air brushed against my face. The sky was soft with fading light, the world moving on around us. As we walked to the car, I looked back at the window one last time. There were only 2 chairs now, not 3. And for the first time, that felt right. Hey besties, thanks for staying till the end of this wild ride. Imagine finding out your own mom stole from you and planned to start a new life behind your dad's back. Brutal, right? But sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, sets you free. If you felt this story, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more real-life tales. See you in the next one. Bye!